Commander Thelvax stood before the classroom of young cadets. His scales were gray with age, marked with scars from battles he wished he could forget. The students looked at him with wide eyes, waiting for him to speak. They came from different worlds across the galaxy, all training to become officers in the Galactic Coalition military. Today we will discuss asymmetric warfare, Thelvax began, his voice rough like stones grinding together. We will talk about enemies who do not fight the way you expect them to fight. A young cadet in the front row raised his hand. Commander, who is the most dangerous enemy you ever faced? Thelvax was quiet for a moment. He walked to the window and looked out at the training grounds where alien and human soldiers practiced together. Humans, he finally said. The classroom erupted in laughter. Several cadets whispered to each other. One of them, a tall Vorkin named Zell, spoke up.
Sir, humans are our allies.
They have been part of the coalition for almost 50 years now. How can they be dangerous? Thelvax turned around slowly. His expression made the laughter die immediately. That is exactly the problem with young officers today. You see humans walking beside you and think they are soft. You see them smile and think they are weak. You have never seen what they can do when they decide to fight. He activated the holographic display in the center of the room. An image appeared showing a massive space battle near Saturn's rings. Ships were burning and exploding in the darkness of space. This was 50 years ago, Thelvax said, before humans joined the coalition. We thought they were a threat, a primitive species that had just discovered faster than light travel. We decided to contain them before they could spread too far. The Galactic Council authorized military action. I was given command of a battle group. Our mission was simple: force the human fleet to surrender. The hologram zoomed in on a small human ship. It was damaged badly. Fires were visible through broken sections of its hull. This was the UNSC Tiguk, a destroyer-class vessel. Captain Daewon commanded it with a crew of 47 humans. My fleet had surrounded them near Titan, one of Saturn's moons. The Tiguk was crippled. Their weapons were offline. Their life support was failing. They had no chance of escape and no hope of rescue. Thelvax paused and looked at his students. According to all military doctrine across the galaxy, a commander in that situation surrenders. We offer medical treatment to wounded enemies. We respect the rules of war. I opened a communication channel and offered Captain Daewon honorable terms. I told him his crew would be treated well. I promised medical care. I gave him my word as an officer. The hologram showed the human ship drifting in space, surrounded by dozens of coalition warships. Do you know what his communications officer said to me? Her name was Lieutenant Hana. She looked directly into the camera and said these words: "Humans do not surrender when we can still fight." A cadet raised her hand. But sir, they could not fight. You said their weapons were offline. Thelvax smiled, but there was no humor in it. That is what I thought too. I told them they had 1 hour to decide. I was being merciful. I was being civilized. He touched the holographic controls. The image began to move, showing what happened next. 30 minutes later, the Tiguk's engine suddenly activated. Full power. They were burning their emergency reserves, everything they had left. My tactical officer reported they were on a collision course with my flagship. I ordered all weapons to fire. We hit them with everything. The Tiguk was breaking apart, but it kept coming. The hologram showed the damaged human ship accelerating toward the massive coalition flagship. Weapons fire tore through it, but it did not stop or turn away. Captain Daewon rammed his ship into my flagship at full speed. Then he detonated his reactor core. The explosion destroyed my flagship completely. 3,000 of my crew died instantly. 14 other ships were damaged by the blast. I survived only because I was in a secondary command center on the other side of the ship. The classroom was completely silent now. No one was laughing anymore. 47 humans killed 3,000 coalition soldiers, Thelvax said quietly. 47 humans who should have surrendered. Who any other species would have surrendered, but they did not see it as surrender. They saw it as one more chance to hurt us. One more chance to make us pay for attacking them. He closed the holographic display. We recovered the black box from the Tiguk. Do you know what Captain Daewon said in his final log entry? He said, "We cannot win this battle, but we can make them remember it. Every ship they lose here is one less ship that attacks Earth. Every soldier we kill is one less soldier threatening our families. We do not surrender because surrender means we stop fighting, and we will never stop fighting." A young cadet near the back spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. That sounds like fanaticism, Commander. Like they were not thinking clearly. Thelvax walked slowly toward the cadet. That is what I thought too. That is what I told myself for months afterward. I wrote in my report that humans were irrational, that they did not value their own lives, that they were too primitive to understand civilized warfare. He stopped in front of the cadet's desk. I was wrong. They were not irrational. They were strategic. How can suicide be strategic? Another student asked. Because it worked, Thelvax replied. After the Battle of Titan, every coalition commander knew that humans would never surrender, that even a disabled human ship was still dangerous. We had to change all our tactics. We had to use more resources, more firepower, more caution. A battle that should have been simple became complicated. An enemy that should have been weak became terrifying. He returned to the front of the classroom. The UNSC Teguk was one small ship. Captain Daewon and his crew were 47 people in a galaxy of trillions. But they changed the entire war with one action. They made us afraid. And fear is the most powerful weapon in any conflict. Thelvax looked at each of his students in turn. Humans do not fight like we do. They do not follow our rules. They do not think like we think. When we calculate acceptable losses, they calculate maximum damage. When we plan tactical retreats, they plan last stands. When we offer mercy, they see weakness. So they are monsters? A cadet asked quietly. No, Thelvax said firmly. They are survivors. Earth is a dangerous planet. Their evolution made them fighters. They have known war for their entire history. They have fought each other for thousands of years before they ever reached space. They understand violence in a way we never did. He sat down on the edge of his desk. I have spent 50 years studying humans, fighting them, working with them, teaching alongside them. And I have learned one absolute truth. You never want humans as your enemy. Never. Because they will do whatever it takes to win. They will sacrifice anything. They will endure any pain. They will never give up. The classroom remained silent for a long moment. Finally, young Zell raised his hand again. Commander, you said this was just the beginning. That this was your first battle against humans. Thelvax nodded slowly. Yes, the Battle of Titan taught me that humans do not surrender. But that was only the first lesson. The war lasted 3 more years. And every battle taught me something new about what humans are capable of. He looked at the time display on the wall. We will continue tomorrow. I will tell you about Sol Station, about the siege that should have lasted 6 hours but lasted 47 days, about the civilians who became soldiers, and the soldiers who became legends. As the students filed out of the classroom, talking quietly among themselves, Thelvax remained at his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out an old photograph. It showed a young human woman in a military uniform, smiling at the camera. Lieutenant Hana, the communications officer from the Teguk. He had found this picture in the wreckage, somehow surviving when nothing else did. He kept it to remember. To never forget what humans were willing to do, what they were capable of becoming when pushed to their limits. And to remind himself why he now fought beside them instead of against them. Because having humans as allies was much better than having them as enemies. Much, much better. The next day, Commander Thelvax stood before his class again. The students were quieter today. They had spent the evening thinking about what he told them. About the Battle of Titan. About the 47 humans who refused to surrender. Yesterday I told you humans do not surrender, Thelvax began. Today I will tell you something worse. Humans do not give up, even when surrender would be the smart choice. He activated the holographic display again. This time it showed a massive orbital station spinning slowly above a blue and green planet. This is Sol Station, he said, an orbital habitat built by humans in their solar system. It housed 200,000 people. Civilians, families, children, scientists, merchants, people from a dozen different species, not just humans. The hologram rotated, showing the station's massive ring structure. When the war started, Sol Station was one of our primary targets. We needed to control human space. Military doctrine said civilian stations would surrender quickly to avoid casualties. A cadet raised her hand. How many human soldiers defended it? 800, Thelvax replied. 800 soldiers against a full coalition battle group. 15,000 troops. We had superior weapons, superior numbers, and superior position. Our tactical analysis predicted the station would fall in 6 hours with minimal resistance. He paused and looked at his students. The siege lasted 47 days. The classroom erupted in whispers. Thelvax waited for silence before continuing. The commanding officer was Colonel Taemin, a career soldier, 30 years of service. When we sent the surrender demand, he responded within minutes. He said the coalition forces could have the station, but he needed time to evacuate all non-combatant aliens first. That was a trick, one cadet said. He was stalling. No, Thelvax replied firmly. It was not a trick. Over the next 72 hours, we watched as humans evacuated every alien civilian on that station. Draxians, Vorkins, Kalathi, every species except humans. They used every shuttle they had. They gave the alien civilians their food, their water, their medicine, and they kept their own families on the station. The hologram showed small shuttles leaving the station in an endless stream. I reported this to my superiors. They did not believe it. They thought it was a strategic deception, but it was real. Humans saved our people first. Thelvax touched the controls and the scene changed. After the evacuation, Colonel Taemin sent us another message. He said, "Thank you for your patience. Now we fight." The hologram showed coalition forces approaching the station. We started with standard boarding procedures. 12 assault teams, 600 soldiers in the first wave. We breached the station at 12 different points. We expected to secure major corridors within the first hour. He was quiet for a moment, remembering. We were wrong about everything. Humans had turned Sol Station into a fortress. Every corridor was trapped. Every room was defensible. Every civilian became part of the defense. The elderly provided intelligence. The children carried ammunition. The scientists built weapons. The doctors operated under fire. A student asked, "How can children fight soldiers?" They did not fight directly, Thelvax explained. But they were part of the war machine. A human child of 10 years old can carry supplies through ventilation tunnels we could not access. A human teenager can operate surveillance systems and report enemy movements. Humans do not separate civilian and military the way we do. When their home is threatened, everyone contributes. The hologram showed a narrow corridor. This is Corridor 7B. A young corporal named Subin was assigned to hold this position with her squad. 8 soldiers total. Their job was simple: delay our advance for 2 hours while civilians were moved to secure areas. Thelvax zoomed in on the corridor. Subin's entire squad was killed in the first hour. She was wounded, shot twice in the leg, shrapnel in her shoulder. Any other species would have retreated or died. Subin held that corridor alone for 13 more hours. The classroom was completely silent. We sent wave after wave of soldiers. She had positioned herself at a choke point where we could only approach from one direction. She used every weapon she could reach. When her rifle ran out of ammunition, she used her sidearm. When that was empty, she used grenades. When those were gone, she used a knife. He changed the holographic image to show casualty reports. 89 coalition soldiers died trying to get past one wounded human. When we finally overran her position, she was unconscious from blood loss. We found something interesting. She had written her sister's name on every ammunition magazine. Min-hee, her younger sister, 15 years old, somewhere else on the station. Subin fought for 13 hours thinking about her sister with every shot she fired. A cadet spoke up, his voice quiet. "Did she survive?" "Yes," Thelvax said. "We gave her medical treatment. She recovered and was returned to human custody in a prisoner exchange 6 months later. She fought in 12 more battles before the war ended. She is now a general in the Earth Defense Forces, and her sister Min-hee became a doctor. She runs a clinic on Sol Station today, treating both humans and aliens." He changed the holographic display again. But Subin was just one soldier. Let me tell you about Hyun-woo. He was not military. He was a civilian engineer who worked in waste management. Not a glamorous job. He processed sewage and recycled materials. The hologram showed the station's internal systems. Hyun-woo understood the station's waste recycling better than anyone. He realized he could weaponize it. He turned the methane collection systems into fuel-air explosives. He modified the chemical processing to create toxic gas. He used his knowledge of plumbing to flood sections with contaminated water when we tried to advance. Thelvax shook his head slowly. A sewage engineer became one of the most dangerous opponents we faced. He killed hundreds of coalition soldiers without ever firing a gun. We only discovered what he was doing when we captured him 3 weeks into the siege. He surrendered peacefully. He said his job was done. He had bought enough time. Time for what? A student asked. For civilians to prepare deeper defenses. For soldiers to rest and resupply. For doctors to set up emergency medical facilities. Thelvax pulled up an image of a human in a blood-stained medical coat. This is Dr. Jin Wu, Chief Medical Officer on Seoul Station. When the siege started, he had a fully equipped hospital. By day 5, it was destroyed in the fighting. So he set up a new hospital in a cargo bay. When that was destroyed on day 12, he moved to a maintenance tunnel. He performed surgery in zero gravity under fire. The hologram showed makeshift medical facilities in impossible conditions. We intercepted his communications several times. His superiors offered to evacuate him. He refused. He said, "I am a doctor. My place is with the wounded." He treated human and alien casualties. When we captured sections of the station, we found coalition soldiers who had been wounded and left behind. Jinwoo had treated them, saved their lives. Even though we were enemies, Thelvax deactivated the hologram. The siege continued for 47 days. We lost 40,000 soldiers, 40,000, against 800 defenders and armed civilians. Every meter we advanced cost us blood. Every room we captured was paid for with lives. And the humans never stopped fighting. He walked to the window. On day 45, we finally reached the command center. Colonel Taemin was there with his remaining officers. Maybe 50 soldiers left alive. We had won. We had taken Seoul Station. He turned to face his students. Except we had not won anything. Colonel Taemin had activated the station's self-destruct sequence. A student gasped. He was going to kill everyone? No, Thelvax said. He gave us 20 minutes to evacuate all wounded, both human and coalition soldiers. He wanted everyone off the station who could be saved. My soldiers were carrying injured humans and humans were carrying injured coalition troops. Everyone working together to get people to the escape pods. He paused, remembering that day vividly. I went to the command center. I found Colonel Taemin manually overriding the evacuation protocols to keep the self-destruct active. I asked him why. Why destroy the station after fighting so hard to defend it? Thelvax repeated the colonel's words carefully. He said, "We fought for the people, not the place. The people are safe now, but you wanted this station. You spent 40,000 lives to take it, so you can have it. You can have a ball of fire and twisted metal, but you cannot have a victory." "That is insane," a cadet said. "No," Thelvax replied. "That is strategic. That is psychological warfare." After Seoul Station, every coalition commander knew that capturing human territory meant nothing. Humans would destroy their own property rather than let us have it. It made every battle more difficult, every objective more complicated. He returned to his desk and sat down. Colonel Taemin stayed on the station to ensure everyone evacuated safely. His last transmission was, "You wanted Seoul Station. You cannot have it." No one can. The station exploded 3 minutes later. We recovered his body from the wreckage. He was still at his post, making sure the self-destruct worked properly. The classroom was heavy with silence. Finally, a young student asked, "Commander, why did they fight so hard for a place they were just going to destroy?" Thelvax smiled sadly. "Because they were not fighting for the station. They were fighting for time." Commander Thelvax arrived early to his classroom. He placed a small data chip on his desk and stared at it for several minutes before his students began arriving. When everyone was seated, he held up the chip between his clawed fingers. "This is one of the most valuable pieces of intelligence the Coalition ever received," he said quietly. "It contains detailed analysis of our prison security protocols, weaknesses in our detention systems, flaws in our interrogation methods, recommendations for improvement." He set it down carefully. "A human prisoner gave it to me. Let me tell you that story." The holographic display activated, showing a massive facility floating in space. "This is Detention Facility Omega-7, built to hold 10,000 prisoners, considered escape-proof by Coalition standards. We used it to house captured human soldiers. We thought if we could interrogate them, we could understand human tactics, learn how they think, find their weaknesses." A cadet raised his hand. "How many humans were held there?" 3,000, Thelvax replied. "Captured from various battles over 8 months. Our intelligence division was very interested in them. We wanted to know how humans could be so effective with inferior technology. We wanted to break their spirit and learn their secrets." He changed the holographic image to show the interior of the prison. "Standard Coalition detention protocol is simple. Isolate prisoners, limit communication, Provide basic needs but nothing comfortable. Most species break within weeks. They become cooperative. They provide information. They accept their situation. He paused. Humans did none of these things. The hologram showed a middle-aged human woman in a prison uniform. This is Lieutenant Commander Boram, naval officer, 35 years old, captured when her ship was destroyed at the Battle of New Busan. She was the senior-ranking human prisoner. According to our procedures, we isolated her immediately. Solitary confinement. No contact with other prisoners. Thelvax smiled grimly. Within 3 days, she was communicating with every human in the facility. We did not understand how at first. We monitored all electronic systems. We watched for coded messages. We found nothing. He zoomed in on the prison cafeteria. They were using sign language during mealtimes. Simple gestures that looked random. A scratch of the nose. A way of holding a cup. The position of fingers on a table. Every movement was a message. A student looked confused. But humans do not have natural sign language like some species. No, Thelvax agreed. They invented it. In 3 days, Boram created an entire communication system and taught it to 3,000 prisoners without us noticing. By the end of the first week, humans had re-established their military hierarchy inside our prison. Boram was their commander. She gave orders. She organized them. She kept them functioning as a unit. The hologram changed to show a young human male. This is Private Jae Sung, 19 years old, the youngest prisoner in the facility. Volunteers for punishment duty. Punishment duty? A cadet asked. When prisoners misbehave, we punish them. Isolation, reduced rations. Hard labor, it discourages bad behavior. Thelvax looked at the image of Jae Sung. Jae Sung volunteered to take punishment for other prisoners. He would intentionally break rules, so he would be moved to different sections of the prison. While being transferred, he memorized guard patrol patterns. He counted cameras. He noted security weak points. Then he communicated this information to Boram using their sign language. He changed images again, showing a stern-looking human woman, Captain Yeonhee, intelligence officer. She pretended to be a regular infantry soldier. We did not know her real rank for 6 months. During that time, she acted traumatized, cooperative. She answered questions. She seemed broken. He paused. She was interrogating us. Every question we asked taught her something about what we wanted to know. Every guard she talked to revealed information about facility operations. She was gathering intelligence while we thought we were interrogating her. A cadet shook his head in disbelief. They turned a prison into an intelligence operation? Yes, Thelvax said. But that was just preparation. Let me tell you about Sergeant Minho, fighter pilot, shot down over one of our defensive positions. He was assigned to the prison workshop. We let prisoners do simple labor. It keeps them occupied, reduces problems. The hologram showed a workshop area with various tools and materials. Minho spent 6 months in that workshop, making basic items, behaving well, being a model prisoner. Thelvax leaned forward. He was building weapons. Simple things. Sharpened pieces of metal, modified tools, chemical mixtures from cleaning supplies. Nothing sophisticated, nothing we would notice was missing, but enough to arm 3,000 prisoners for 20 minutes of fighting. That was all they needed. The hologram showed a timeline. 8 months after the first humans arrived at Omega-7, they initiated what they called Operation Homecoming. It happened during a shift change. Guards were moving between posts. Security was momentarily lighter. That was when they struck. He played footage from security cameras. Jae Sung created a distraction in the cafeteria. A fight between prisoners, guards responded. While they were distracted, Yeonhee and 50 other humans overpowered guards in 3 different sectors. They used Minho's improvised weapons. They moved fast and coordinated. Within 10 minutes, they controlled the main security station. A student gasped as the footage showed the prison erupting into chaos. They disabled communications first, Thelvax continued. We could not call for reinforcements immediately. Then they opened all the cells. Not just human cells. Every prisoner, Draxian prisoners, Vorkin prisoners, Kalathi prisoners, species from a dozen different worlds. Why? A cadet asked. Why free enemy aliens? Because that is what humans do, Thelvax said simply. Boram gave a direct order. No prisoner left behind, human or not. They spent precious time organizing the evacuation of aliens who were not their species, who had fought against Earth in different conflicts. But to humans, a prisoner is a prisoner, someone who deserves freedom. The hologram showed the escape in progress. They stole 4 transport ships from the facility hangar. They sabotaged 8 more so we could not pursue immediately. They downloaded our entire intelligence database before leaving, and they set explosives in the facility power core set to detonate 30 minutes after they left. Just enough time for all our guards to evacuate. Thelvax stopped the playback. I was visiting Omega-7 that day. I was in the command center when humans took control. I tried to organize a defense, but it was too late. They moved too fast, too efficiently. I found myself face to face with Boram in a corridor. He was quiet for a moment, remembering. She was armed. I was not. She could have killed me easily. The war was still going. I was the enemy. But she did not shoot. She walked up to me and handed me that data chip. He pointed to the chip on his desk. She said, "Everything we observed about your security protocols. Take it, learn from it, because next time we will not be prisoners." A student interrupted. "She helped you? During an escape?" "Yes," Thelvax said. "She walked away to help evacuate others." I stood there holding that chip, trying to understand what just happened. Why would she give me information that would make prisons better? Make it harder for humans to escape in the future? He picked up the chip and held it up. I studied this for months. The information was genuine. Detailed analysis of every security flaw, recommendations that would prevent escapes. We implemented these changes across all Coalition facilities. They work. We have not had a major prison break since, not from any species. "I still do not understand," a cadet said. "Why help the enemy?" Thelvax set the chip down. Because Boram was not thinking about the war. She was thinking about the galaxy after the war. She knew that improved prison security would protect all prisoners, human and alien. She knew that better facilities meant better treatment. She was not just fighting a war. She was trying to build a better future. He brought up an image of a handwritten letter. "We found this during our search of the facility after the escape." Written by Jae Sung. A letter to his family he never expected to send. Read what it says. The text appeared on the holographic display. A student read it aloud slowly. "Mother and father, do not worry about me. We take care of each other here. That is what humans do. The guards are not cruel. The other prisoners are becoming friends. I miss home, but I am not alone. When this war ends, I will come home, and I will be proud of how we acted here. We stayed human. We stayed good, even in a prison. Even as enemies." Love, Jae Sung. The classroom was silent. Thelvax let the words sink in. This letter changed how I thought about humans. Jae Sung was 19 years old. A prisoner in an enemy facility. He had every reason to be angry, hateful, and bitter. Instead, he wrote about staying good, about taking care of each other, about being proud of their behavior. He closed the holographic display. Of the 3,000 human prisoners in Omega-7, 2,847 escaped. 847 alien prisoners also escaped with them. Only 153 humans were recaptured, and they surrendered peacefully when cornered. No guards were killed during the escape. Injured, yes, but not killed. Humans could have slaughtered everyone. They chose not to. Commander Thelvax stood before his class with a tired expression. He had been teaching about the human war for 3 days now. Each lesson seemed to affect his students more deeply. Today would be different. Today he would tell them about the battle that ended everything. "We have discussed human courage," he began. "We have discussed human determination. We have discussed human ingenuity. Today I will tell you about human intelligence. About the day they defeated us without destroying us. About the battle that made peace possible." The holographic display showed a massive fleet of ships gathered near Jupiter's moon, Ganymede. "This is the Coalition Armada assembled for Operation Final Storm. Our plan to end the human war decisively. 847 warships, 3 full armadas, the largest military force ever assembled by the Coalition at that time." A cadet counted quickly. "Commander, that is enormous." "How many ships did humans have?" 134, Thelvax replied. "The entire human defense fleet. Every combat-capable ship Earth could field. They were outnumbered 6-1. Our military analysts calculated their chances of victory at less than 1%. He changed the image to show a human officer. This is Admiral Sangwoo, commander of Earth's Defense Fleet, 53 years old, 30 years of military service. He was given an impossible task. Stop our armada or Earth would be next. Every military computer simulation we ran showed the same result. Human defeat within 18 hours. Thelvax walked slowly across the front of the classroom. I was there, promoted to Fleet Admiral after my experiences at Sol Station and Omega-7. The Coalition wanted someone who understood humans to lead this final battle. I studied every engagement humans had fought. I thought I knew what to expect. I was wrong. The hologram showed the two fleets approaching each other. The battle began predictably. We advanced in standard formation. Overwhelming force. Professional tactics. Humans divided their fleet into 4 groups. It made no tactical sense. They were splitting their already inferior numbers. My tactical officers celebrated. They thought humans were panicking. He zoomed in on the communications data, but I noticed something. Human communications were completely open, not encrypted. We could hear everything they were saying to each other. And they were not talking about tactics. They were playing music. A student looked confused. Music? Classical music from Earth, Thelvax explained. A composer named Bach. The piece was called Toccata and Fugue in D minor, very dramatic, very powerful. I asked our intelligence officer why humans would play music during a battle. He said they were probably trying to stay calm. I did not believe that. Humans do not waste time on meaningless gestures. The hologram showed the battle formation shifting. The music was a countdown. When it reached a certain point, everything changed. A coalition capital ship at the center of our formation suddenly lost all power. Shields down, weapons offline, communications dead. It was just drifting in space. He paused for effect. Then another ship lost power. Then another. Within 5 minutes, 400 ships were disabled. My flagship among them. We sat in the darkness trying to understand what happened. No visible weapons fire. No missiles. Just sudden, complete system failure. A cadet raised his hand. Some kind of electromagnetic weapon? Yes, Thelvax said. But not fired from a distance. Humans had hidden a stealth ship inside Ganymede's ice. For 6 days. Captain Yunji and her crew stayed in complete silence beneath kilometers of ice. Waiting. When the music reached the right point, they emerged directly behind our formation and attached electromagnetic pulse mines to my command ship. The EMP cascade spread through our fleet using our own communication systems against us. The hologram showed the beautiful, terrible moment when 400 warships went dark simultaneously. Our fleet was blind. We could not coordinate. We could not communicate with other battle groups. We were 800 ships fighting as individuals instead of as a fleet, and that was when the real attack began. He changed the image to show thousands of small craft. What we thought was human retreat was actually positioning. 2,000 fighter craft led by Lieutenant Kyung-soo. Call sign Ghost, they hit us like a swarm. Not random. Surgical precision. They did not try to destroy our ships. They targeted communication arrays, sensor pods, coordination systems. Everything we needed to fight as a unified force. Thelvax brought up damage reports. In 30 minutes, Ghost Squadron destroyed our ability to operate as a fleet. We still had weapons. We still had shields. But we were isolated ships, not an armada, and isolated ships cannot defeat a coordinated enemy. A student interrupted. But you still had superior numbers. You could have fought individually. That is what I thought, Thelvax admitted. I was trying to organize a fighting retreat. Get our ships back into formation. Re-establish communications. But then humans surrounded us completely, every angle, every approach vector. We were trapped. He changed the holographic display to show the encirclement. A cadet looked at it carefully and frowned. Commander, those numbers do not make sense. Humans did not have enough ships to surround your entire fleet. Thelvax smiled grimly. Correct. They did not. This is where Admiral Sangwoo showed his true brilliance. Half of the ships in that encirclement were not military vessels. They were civilian ships, freighters, mining vessels, transport craft, even a hospital ship. 89 civilian vessels commanded by a young ensign named Mi Young, 22 years old. She was commanding unarmed civilian ships in a battle against a military armada. The classroom erupted in whispers. That is insane, someone said. No, Thelvax replied firmly. That is psychological warfare at its finest. My tactical computers were going crazy. Sensors showed we were surrounded by nearly 300 ships. We could not tell which were military and which were civilian. We could not risk firing randomly. We might hit a hospital ship full of wounded. We might destroy a transport full of refugees. And humans knew we would hesitate. He brought up a communication log. Admiral Sang-woo opened a direct channel to me. I expected threats, demands. Instead, he talked to me like we were colleagues discussing a problem. He said, "Admiral, I respect you. I have read your service record. You are an honorable officer. You have made difficult decisions in this war. Now I ask you to make one more difficult decision." Thelvax recited the words he would never forget. He said, "We have defeated your coordination. We have surrounded your fleet. You cannot retreat in an organized manner. If you keep fighting, this becomes a slaughter. Your soldiers will die in isolated actions against a coordinated enemy. I do not want that. I am asking you to surrender to save your soldiers' lives. We are trying to end this war, not perpetuate it." The classroom was completely silent. "I refused," Thelvax said quietly. "Pride, honor, duty. I ordered my ships to break through the encirclement, to fight our way out." Sang-woo did not argue. He just said, "I understand. I hope we both survive to talk again." The hologram showed coalition ships attempting to break through human lines. We fought for 6 hours, brutal, confused, disorganized. We lost 17 ships. Humans lost 9. My flagship took critical damage. I was wounded. My tactical officer was dead. And I realized something terrible. We were losing. He sat down on his desk. "Not just this battle. The entire war. Because if humans could defeat an armada 6 times their size, they could defeat anything we sent. And they had done it without overwhelming force, without superior technology. Just intelligence, strategy, psychology." I opened a channel to Sang-woo. I accepted his terms, surrender. Thelvax looked at his students. "Do you know what humans did next? They provided medical aid to our wounded. They gave us food and water. They repaired our damaged ships enough to make it home. Sang-woo personally visited my flagship to ensure I received proper medical treatment." A cadet asked why. "You were enemies." "Because humans separate war from hate," Thelvax explained. "They can fight you and still respect you. They can defeat you and still help you." Sang-woo sat beside my medical bed and said, "This war should have never happened. We both know that now. Let us work together to end it properly." He activated the holographic display one more time. 3 days after the battle, I learned something that changed everything. Human fleet was out of ammunition after the fighter strike. The civilian ships had no weapons at all. If we had pressed the attack after I initially refused surrender, we would have won. The encirclement was a bluff. Mi Young's hospital ship was actually treating human wounded. They projected false sensor signatures to look like military vessels. The students sat in shocked silence. Finally, someone asked, "They defeated you with a bluff?" "No," Thelvax corrected. "They defeated us with understanding." Sang-woo knew I would hesitate to fire on civilian ships. He knew I would respect the offer to save my soldiers' lives. He knew I would eventually realize that winning this battle did not mean winning the war. He knew I would choose survival over pride, and he was right about all of it. He stood up and walked to the window. "Admiral Sang-woo sent me a personal message after the battle. I have read it 1,000 times. It said, 'This is not about winners and losers. This is about survival. We can destroy each other, or we can build something better. I chose to believe you would make the right choice.'" Commander Thelvax walked into his classroom with someone following him. The students stood immediately when they saw who it was. General Sujin of the Earth Defense Coalition, Supreme Commander of all Coalition military forces. She was a legend, a hero. "And she was here in this classroom. Please sit," Sujin said with a gentle smile. "I am here to listen, not to lecture. Commander Thelvax has been telling you about the old war, about when humans and the Coalition were enemies. I asked to be here today because he will tell you about something different, about when we became allies." Thelvax nodded to her respectfully and activated the holographic display. It showed a date. 5 years ago. This is when everything changed again. When the Krell arrived, the hologram showed ships appearing from nowhere, strange organic-looking vessels that seemed to grow rather than be built. The Krell, extragalactic species, hive-mind intelligence. They came from beyond our galaxy with no warning. No communication. No demands. They just started attacking. A cadet asked nervously, "What did they want?" "We never found out. Thelvax replied. They did not talk. They did not negotiate. They just consumed. Planets, resources, people, everything. The hologram showed Krell ships destroying a station. Their first target was Draxion Prime, my homeworld. The image changed to show a beautiful planet with blue oceans and green continents. 4.7 billion people. My family, my friends, everything I grew up with. And the Krell were coming. Coalition High Command ran the numbers. With our fleet positions and the Krell's speed, we had 72 hours before they arrived. Maybe 87% of civilians would die. Evacuation was deemed mathematically impossible. Sujin spoke quietly from the back of the room. I was in the Coalition Council meeting when those numbers came up. The plan was strategic retreat. Abandon Draxion Prime. Establish a defensive line at the next sector. Accept the losses. It was logical. It was military doctrine. It was the smart choice. But you did not accept it, a student said. No, Sujin replied. Because humans do not abandon people just because saving them is difficult. I proposed a full-scale evacuation. Every coalition member world would send ships. We would pull people off that planet until the Krell arrived. We would save as many as possible. Thelvax continued the story. Most coalition admirals said it was impossible. Too many people. Not enough time. Not enough ships. They were probably right. But then Sujin said something I will never forget. She said, then we make it possible. Earth will commit 60% of our fleet. Our borders will be undefended. We might lose our own worlds while saving yours. But we are not going to let 5 billion people die because the math is hard. The hologram showed hundreds of ships gathering. Human ships, alien ships, every vessel that could carry people. Within 12 hours, the evacuation fleet arrived at Draxion Prime. Humans led the coordination. They had experience with large-scale operations from their own history. Wars on Earth had created millions of refugees. They knew how to move populations quickly. He brought up an image of a human officer. Captain Dong-hyun commanded the defense fleet. His job was simple. Delay the Krell, give the evacuation more time. He had 48 destroyers. The Krell had over 2,000 ships. He was supposed to hold them for maybe 6 hours. The hologram showed the battle. Small human ships darting between massive Krell vessels. Dong-hyun fought a retreating battle for 71 hours. He lost 78% of his fleet. 3,000 human sailors died buying time for people they had never met, people from a species they had fought a war against 40 years earlier. A cadet's voice shook. Why would they do that? Sujin answered. Because it was the right thing to do. Because Draxians are our allies now. Because humans protect their friends. It is really that simple. Thelvax pulled up communication logs. Dong-hyun's final transmission was, Draxion Prime evacuation is at 92%. We need 6 more hours. We are staying. His ship was destroyed 3 hours later. He and his crew bought the time needed. The evacuation reached 97% before the Krell arrived. The hologram showed the surface of Draxion Prime. Commander Jiwon led ground operations, making sure civilians reached the transports. Humans went building to building. They carried elderly Draxians who could not walk. They organized children. They calmed panicking crowds. When our own soldiers were overwhelmed, humans maintained order. He pulled up footage of Jiwon directing evacuations. I was on the planet. Too old to evacuate early. I was organizing the final defense, planning to die with my world like any good commander should. Jiwon found me in the command center. She said my evacuation transport was waiting. I refused. I told her a commander stays with his world. Do you know what she did? A student shook her head. She grabbed my arm and physically dragged me toward the transport. I was angry, I argued. She did not care. Thelvax smiled at the memory. She said, your people need leaders in exile more than martyrs in ashes. Come with us. And I was too shocked to resist further. The hologram showed transports leaving the planet as Krell ships approached. Jiwon stayed on the surface until the last civilian transport left. Then she took the final military shuttle. We evacuated 4.2 billion of 4.7 billion people. 500 million chose to stay and fight. Most of them died. But Jiwon saved everyone who wanted to be saved. He changed the image to show refugee camps. When I reached the transport, I saw what Jiwon had organized. My family was there, safe, my command staff alive, 40,000 soldiers under my command, all rescued. She had marked them as priority evacuees even though they were military, even though civilians should have come first, because she knew I would need them. She knew Draxians would need their leaders and soldiers in the coming war. Sujin spoke again. While we evacuated, Dr. Younghee was studying captured Krell technology. She discovered their weakness. The hive mind uses quantum entanglement for communication, disrupt specific frequencies, and they lose coordination. She developed what we call the Silence Protocol, a weapon that severs the Krell hive mind connection. The hologram showed a human woman working in a laboratory. She looked exhausted. Younghee worked for 39 days without sleep, using stimulants to stay awake, driving herself to the edge of death. Coalition scientists told her it would take years to develop such a weapon. She said she did not have years. People were dying, so she made it work in 39 days. A cadet asked, "Did it work?" "Yes," Thelvax replied. "The Silence Protocol won us the war. We deployed it at the Krell staging ground, severed their hive mind across 40 light years. Their fleet became disorganized. Individual ships confused and vulnerable. We won our first major victory. Then we won more. Within a year, we pushed them back. Within 2 years, we drove them out of our galaxy entirely." He deactivated the hologram and looked at his students carefully. "I have told you about humans as enemies, how they fought at Titan, how they defended Sol Station, how they escaped from Omega-7, how they defeated us at Ganymede. All of that taught me humans are dangerous opponents. But what happened during the Krell invasion taught me something more important. Humans are even more dangerous as allies." "How?" a student asked. "Because when humans were our enemies, they fought to survive. That was frightening." Thelvax walked slowly across the front of the room. "When humans became our allies, they fought to save us. That was terrifying, because it meant they would do for us what they did for themselves. They would sacrifice their ships to buy us time. They would risk their borders to evacuate our people. They would work themselves to death to develop weapons that protect us." Sujin stood up and walked to the front of the class. "Commander Thelvax has taught you about human warfare. Let me tell you what he did not say. He did not tell you that he wrote the recommendation that got Donghyun promoted posthumously. He did not tell you that he personally thanked every human family that lost someone at Draxian Prime. He did not tell you that he spent 2 years working with Younghee to refine the Silence Protocol." She looked at Thelvax with respect. "He did not tell you that after Jiwan dragged him onto that transport, he organized 4 million Draxian refugees, found them homes, found them work, rebuilt their lives. He did not tell you that he became one of our greatest advocates for human-alien cooperation." Thelvax looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I am only here because humans saved me, saved my people, saved my world's legacy even though the planet itself burned. They earned my respect through action." A young cadet raised his hand. "Commander, you fought against humans for 3 years. You have worked with them for 47 years. What is the most important thing you learned about them?" Thelvax was quiet for a long moment. "Humans do not fight for territory. They do not fight for resources. They do not fight for glory or honor or pride. Humans fight for each other, and when you become their ally, you become part of that each other. They will die for you, not because of strategy or politics, because to them, allies are family, and humans protect their family." Sujin added, "We are not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the most advanced, but we never stop fighting for the people we choose to protect. That is what makes us human. That is what makes us good allies. That is what makes our